Welcome to Whispers of the Night, a quiet space where the day can soften and rest can begin. If this is your first time here, you're very welcome. And if you're returning, thank you for joining me again tonight. Before we begin, make yourself comfortable. You may wish to lie down now or settle into a position where your body can fully relax. If you enjoy gentle stories, calm voices, and peaceful nights like this one, you're invited to subscribe to Whispers of the Night. New sleep stories are shared regularly, each one created to help you unwind and drift naturally into sleep. You can also like this video or leave a quiet comment below. It helps support the channel and allows these whispers to reach others who need rest. Now, there's nothing you need to do. Just listen and let the night take over. Before the story begins, let's allow your body and mind to relax. Bring your attention to your breathing, not changing it, just noticing. Take a slow breath in and gently breathe out. Again, in and out. Feel the surface beneath you, supporting your body completely. There's nothing you need to hold, nothing you need to fix. Allow your feet to relax. Your legs feel heavy and calm. With every breath out, imagine tension melting away, flowing downward and disappearing. Your hips soften. Your shoulders drop. Your arms rest easily by your sides. Let your jaw unclench. Your tongue relax. Your eyelids grow heavy. If thoughts appear, there's no need to follow them. Let them drift past like clouds in the night sky. You are safe. You are comfortable. You are allowed to rest. Continue breathing slowly as the story begins. The Moonlit Architect's Vision, Twilight Arrival. Aurora arrived at the courtyard without quite deciding to do so. Her feet carried her there as if guided by a quieter will than thought, one that responded not to urgency, but to a soft inner pull. The sky above her had settled into twilight, that delicate hour where the last warmth of day dissolves into cool blue shadows. Stars were beginning to appear, one by one, like careful stitches in dark fabric. The air felt rinsed and new, touched with the faint scent of stone after evening dew. And with every breath, her shoulders loosened, as though the night itself were gently unfastening her from the day she had just lived. The courtyard opened before her in a slow reveal, framed by low archways and old walls, softened by climbing ivy. Moonlight spilled across the ground in wide, luminous pools, silver and pale, as if the moon had tipped a vessel and let its light flow freely. The stone beneath her shoes gleamed faintly, uneven with age, each crack holding a whisper of history. Aurora slowed her pace, then stopped altogether, feeling an instinctive need to arrive fully, to let the place notice her before she went any further. Somewhere beyond the walls, leaves rustled in a mild, unhurried rhythm, stirred by a breeze too gentle to be felt on her skin, but present enough to be heard. An owl called from a distant roofline, its sound low and rounded, echoing softly before fading back into silence. The courtyard did not feel empty. It felt expectant, as though it had been waiting not for a person exactly, but for attention. Aurora's restlessness, which had followed her all day like a loose thread, began to change shape. It did not vanish, but it softened, turning into something closer to curiosity. She took a few more steps forward and noticed then what she had not seen at first. Papers scattered across the stone floor, their edges lifting slightly as if breathing. Sketches, dozens of them, perhaps more, spread in loose, organic patterns, as though placed by chance, yet guided by an invisible hand. She knelt, careful not to disturb them, and reached toward the nearest sheet. The paper was warm, unexpectedly so, and faintly luminous. Lines drawn in charcoal and ink traced forms that felt both architectural and dreamlike, arches that led nowhere. Staircases folding into themselves, towers balanced on impossibly slender foundations. Some sketches were precise, measured, and deliberate, while others were loose and flowing, almost musical in their curves. Each one glowed softly under the moonlight, not brightly enough to demand attention, but enough to invite it. As Aurora studied them, her breathing slowed without effort. Inhale, cool air filling her chest. Exhale, tension easing downward, out through her feet and into the stone. The sound of leaves, the distant owl, even the faint hum of night insects blended into a single, steady backdrop. It felt like the world had chosen a gentler tempo, and her body, relieved, was happy to follow. She noticed that some sketches seemed unfinished, lines trailing off into blank space, while others were layered, erased, and redrawn multiple times. These were not static images. They felt alive, as though they were still becoming. Aurora sensed that they were not simply drawings of buildings, but expressions of thought itself. It's caught mid-dream, halfway between imagination and form. Her fingers hovered over one particular sketch, a courtyard not unlike the one she was standing in, but altered. In the drawing, moonlight flowed like water from a central well, and people sat quietly along the edges, heads bowed not in sorrow, but in reflection. She felt a subtle recognition, a quiet click inside her chest, as if something long unnamed had just been gently acknowledged. Aurora straightened slightly and looked around, half expecting to see someone watching her, the unseen architect of these visions. The courtyard remained still. No footsteps, no voices, only the slow drift of clouds passing over the moon, briefly dimming the light before allowing it to brighten again. The sketches seemed unbothered by the change, their glow adjusting naturally, as though they were attuned to the night rather than dependent on it. She moved carefully among them, taking in each image, her mind drifting in a calm, unstructured way. There was no need to analyze, no urge to interpret. Thoughts rose and fell like gentle waves, never sharp enough to disturb her growing sense of ease. She realized then how rarely she allowed herself to exist without striving toward something. Here, in this quiet place, creativity did not feel like effort. It felt like listening. A soft sound drew her attention, a faint whispering, almost like pages turning, though there was no wind strong enough to move the papers. The sound seemed to come from the sketches themselves, a low murmur that blended with the night. Aurora closed her eyes briefly, letting the sound wash over her. In the darkness behind her eyelids, shapes formed and dissolved, light and shadow weaving together without urgency. When she opened her eyes again, the courtyard seemed subtly changed, not transformed, but clarified, as if she were seeing it with fewer filters. The moonlight appeared richer, deeper, and the stone walls seemed to hold their own quiet glow. Even the air felt textured, layered with stillness. She sat down on the cool stone, folding her legs beneath her, and allowed herself to simply be there. The sketches surrounded her like constellations on the ground, each one a small island of thought. She felt no pressure to pick one up, no need to claim or complete them. They existed, and that was enough. Her breathing settled into a slow, even rhythm. Inhale, exhale. Each breath carried her deeper into the moment. The restlessness that had once pushed at her ribs now felt distant, like a memory of movement rather than movement itself. In its place was a gentle awareness, spacious and unhurried. She noticed how the courtyard seemed to respond to her stillness. Sounds grew softer, more spaced apart. The owl called again, farther away this time, its presence reassuring rather than startling. Leaves whispered, then rested. Silence did not feel empty here. It felt full, padded, kind. Aurora's thoughts drifted toward the idea of building not just structures of stone and wood, but inner architectures, habits, dreams, ways of seeing. She realized that much of what she had built within herself had been hurried, erected quickly to meet expectations, to provide shelter against uncertainty. These sketches suggested another way, a slower, more intuitive approach, where form emerged naturally from attention and care. Her eyelids grew heavy, though she did not feel tired in the usual sense. It was a pleasant heaviness, like sinking into warm water. She leaned back slightly, resting her hands on the stone behind her, feeling its cool steadiness. The moon above continued its silent watch, patient and constant. Time became difficult to measure. Minutes stretched, or perhaps folded inward. Aurora was aware of her body, of the gentle rise and fall of her chest, of the solid ground supporting her. She was also aware of something subtler, sense of connection, as though her own creative pulse was quietly resonating with the space around her. One of the sketches near her knee brightened slightly, almost imperceptibly. It showed a simple structure, a small room with wide windows, open to the night. No furniture, no decoration, just space, light, and air. Aurora felt a warmth spread through her, a quiet understanding settling in her bones. Not every creation needed to be complex. Sometimes, simplicity was the most restful design of all. Her head tilted back, eyes following the slow drift of a cloud as it crossed the moon. For a moment, the courtyard dimmed, then brightened again, like a breath taken and released. She matched it unconsciously, inhaling as the light softened, exhaling as it returned. The sounds of the night continued their gentle pattern, steady and reassuring. Each one seemed placed exactly where it belonged. Nothing too loud, nothing too sudden. Aurora felt herself sinking deeper into calm, as if the courtyard were cradling her awareness, holding it safely in place. She did not know how long she stayed there, surrounded by glowing sketches and moonlight. Eventually, the distinction between thought and feeling blurred, then softened, then thinned. Creativity no longer felt like something she had to reach for. It felt like something she was resting inside of. As the night deepened, the sketches' glow mellowed, their light blending seamlessly with the moon's silver wash. Aurora's breathing slowed further, each breath deeper than the last, her body fully at ease. The courtyard, the night, and her own quiet mind aligned in a shared stillness. In that gentle alignment, she felt safe enough to let go, not of herself, but of effort, of striving, of the need to hold everything together. The moonlit courtyard remained patient and calm, holding the space as Aurora drifted into a serene, wordless rest where ideas could sleep and dreams could begin. The whispering blueprint. Aurora noticed the blueprint gradually, the way one notices a sound only after it has been present for some time. It lay among the other sketches, larger than the rest, its edges worn and softened, as if handled by many careful hands. At first, it appeared still, a calm arrangement of glowing lines on aged parchment. But as she focused her attention on it, the lines began to shift, not suddenly, not dramatically, but slowly, like thoughts rearranging themselves when no one is watching. She leaned closer, drawn in by a gentle curiosity that carried no urgency. The blueprint emitted a soft, steady glow, warmer than moonlight, tinged with gold and pale blue. Lines curved and straightened, intersected and separated, forming shapes that felt familiar yet unnamed. Arches became spirals. Spirals softened into flowing corridors. Corridors unfolded into open spaces. The changes were continuous, seamless, as though the design were breathing. Aurora lowered herself onto her knees and reached out, hesitating for just a moment before allowing her fingertips to touch the surface. The parchment felt smooth and cool, with a faint vibration beneath it, like a distant hum. As her fingers traced one of the glowing lines, the blueprint responded, the line brightening slightly, adjusting its path to follow her touch. There was no resistance, no sense of control being taken from her. Instead, it felt like a quiet collaboration. Her breathing slowed as she followed the pattern. Inhale, her finger gliding along a gentle curve. Exhale, the line widening into a soft loop. Each movement encouraged the next, effortless and unforced. Shapes formed beneath her touch circles, nesting within circles. Pathways weaving in calm repetition. The blueprint seemed to know where it wanted to go, and all she had to do was listen with her hands. Around her, the courtyard remained still. The night sounds continued in their steady rhythm, leaves brushing against stone, an owl calling once and then resting, the subtle hush of air moving through open space. These sounds blended with the slow movement of light on the blueprint, creating a rhythm that guided her attention inward. Thoughts drifted by like clouds, noticed but not followed. The lines rearranged themselves again, this time forming a series of soft geometric shape squares, dissolving into rectangles stretching into gentle arcs. Each transformation happened at a pace that felt perfectly matched to her breath. As she inhaled, a shape would expand slightly, as she exhaled, it would settle into a new configuration. There was no beginning or end to the process, only continuous, calm motion. Aurora felt a sense of quiet focus deepen within her. It was not the sharp concentration she associated with effort or problem-solving, but a smooth, sustained awareness. Her mind felt spacious, uncluttered. The blueprint did not demand interpretation. It invited presence. She realized that imagination, in this form, was not about inventing something new, but about allowing something to reveal itself gently. Her fingers continued their slow journey, tracing paths that looped back on themselves, then branched outward. Each time she reached what seemed like an end, the line would soften and open, becoming another beginning. The repetition was soothing. Follow the line. Notice the glow. Breathe. Follow the curve. Notice the warmth. Breathe again. As the shapes shifted, they began to resemble spaces rather than symbols, rooms opening into courtyards, stairways that curved without steepness, windows placed where light would naturally fall. These imagined spaces felt peaceful, designed not for grandeur, but for rest and reflection. Aurora sensed that this blueprint was less about building something external and more about mapping an inner landscape. She paused, resting her palm flat against the parchment. The glow spread beneath her hand, pulsing slowly, steadily. Her heartbeat matched it without effort. In that moment of still contact, the lines settled into a simple pattern, a wide circle enclosing a smaller one, connected by a single, graceful line. The image felt complete, not final, but whole. Aurora closed her eyes, keeping her hand where it was. Behind her eyelids, the shapes continued to move, softly replaying themselves. Circles forming, lines flowing, spaces opening. The repetition lulled her mind into a deeper calm. Each imagined shape was clear, gentle, unhurried. When she opened her eyes again, the blueprint had shifted once more, now forming a slow, spiraling pattern that drew inward. She followed it with her finger, moving gradually toward the center. The motion felt grounding, centering, like returning to a quiet core. Her breathing grew deeper, fuller, each exhale releasing what little tension remained. The night air felt cooler now, brushing lightly against her skin. She adjusted her posture slightly, but remained close to the blueprint, reluctant to break the connection. The courtyard seemed to hold its breath with her, the space around her, attentive yet relaxed. The spiraling lines eased into a broad, open shape, like a clearing after a winding path. Aurora lifted her hand, and the blueprint continued its slow movement on its own, unbothered by the absence of her touch. She watched as the shapes formed and reformed, content to simply observe. A sense of trust settled over her. Trust in the quiet intelligence of imagination. Trust in the idea that not all guidance arrives as instruction. Some of it arrives as invitation. The blueprint did not tell her what to build or where to go. It showed her how to move gently, how to follow what felt calm and true. Her eyelids grew heavy again, the soft glow of the parchment blurring slightly at the edges. The repetitive motion of the lines, the steady sounds of the night, and the slow rhythm of her breath merged into a single, soothing experience. There was nothing she needed to remember, nothing she needed to solve. As the blueprint continued its endless, gentle rearranging, Aurora allowed herself to rest within the flow it offered. Shapes formed and shifted, curves softened into stillness, and the quiet guidance of imagination carried her deeper into relaxation, where awareness drifted easily and sleep waited patiently just beyond the next slow breath. Stairway of Starlight. Aurora felt the moment when the blueprint's quiet guidance shifted from pattern to direction. It was not an instruction spoken aloud, nor an image sharply defined, but a gentle sense of movement, like a current beneath still water. She rose slowly, joints loose, body calm, and noticed the space before her opening in a way it had not before. Where the courtyard stone had been solid and familiar, a new form emerged, as if it had always been there and was only now allowing itself to be seen. A spiral staircase unfurled upward, each step carved from softly glowing stone. The light was subtle, neither bright nor dim, but perfectly balanced, as though it existed solely to be reassuring. The steps curved gently, inviting rather than imposing, their edges smooth and rounded by time or intention. Aurora stood at the base, feeling no urgency to begin, simply letting her eyes follow the slow arc upward until it disappeared into a soft haze of starlight. The night air felt lighter here, infused with a faint warmth that contrasted gently with the cool glow of the stone. The sounds of the courtyard softened further, as if they were drifting farther away with each breath she took. Leaves rustled somewhere below, but the sound arrived muted and distant, like a memory rather than an event. Aurora placed one foot onto the first step. It supported her effortlessly. There was no sense of weight pressing downward, no strain in her legs. Instead, it felt as though the step met her halfway, lifting her slightly, easing her forward. She shifted her weight fully onto it, then brought her other foot up, standing comfortably, balanced and calm. She began to ascend. Each step followed the same gentle rhythm. Lift, place, rise. There was no need to hurry, no pressure to reach the top. The staircase seemed to move with her, accommodating her pace, adjusting subtly so that every movement felt natural. With each step upward in the story, her body felt lighter, while her thoughts, paradoxically, drifted downward, sinking into a deeper calm. Her breathing became slow and even. Inhale as one foot lifted, exhale as it settled. The repetition was soothing, almost hypnotic. The glow of the stone pulsed faintly in time with her breath, creating a quiet harmony between movement and stillness as she climbed. She noticed that with every step, something seemed to loosen within her. Thoughts from the day unfinished conversations, half-formed worries, small knots of tension began to soften and slip away. They did not vanish abruptly. Instead, they gently detached, like leaves, letting go of a branch and drifting downward, out of sight. The staircase curved, revealing new angles of the night sky with each turn. Stars appeared closer here, their light clearer, steadier. Some seemed to shimmer in response to her presence, as if acknowledging her passage. Aurora felt no surprise at this, only a quiet acceptance, as though this gentle magic were the most natural thing in the world. Her shoulders relaxed further, arms hanging loosely at her sides. The simple act of climbing required almost no effort. It felt less like ascending and more like being carried upward by a slow, invisible tide. Below her, the courtyard receded, its details softening, blending into a wash of silver and shadow. The higher she went, the quieter it became. Not silent, but hushed in a way that felt intentional. Sound did not disappear, it settled. Each footstep made no noise at all, absorbed completely by the glowing stone. Even her breath felt quieter, deeper, more internal. Aurora's mind followed this quieting. Thoughts slowed, spacing themselves farther apart. Between them, a spacious calm opened, wide and comfortable. She realized she did not need to hold onto any thought for long. Each one could arise, float gently, and then drift away, leaving no trace behind. The staircase continued its spiral, consistent and reassuring. Step after step, the same gentle curve, the same soft glow. The repetition lulled her awareness into a steady, descending ease, even as her body moved upward. It felt as though she were moving away from surface concerns and toward something deeper and more restful. She became aware of the sensation in her feet, the faint warmth of the stone, the smoothness beneath her soles. Each contact grounded her, anchoring her in the present moment. She did not need to think about where she was going. The staircase held that knowledge for her as she climbed. The glow of the steps subtly changed, shifting through shades of pale silver and soft blue. The light never startled or distracted. It flowed, slow and even, like a calm breath of its own. Aurora found herself matching it instinctively, inhaling as the light brightened slightly, exhaling as it softened. Her eyelids grew heavier, though her vision remained clear. It was the pleasant heaviness of deep relaxation, not fatigue, the kind that invites rest without demanding it. She allowed her gaze to soften, no longer focusing sharply on any single detail, but taking in the staircase as a whole, as a continuous, gentle path. Another turn, another series of steps. With each curve, she felt more removed from the day she had lived. The concerns that once seemed important now felt distant, their edges blurred. There was nothing she needed to fix, nothing she needed to prepare for. This moment required only her presence, and even that felt effortless. The stars above seemed to stretch, creating a sense of vastness without overwhelming her. Aurora felt small in the most comforting way, like a child held safely within something much larger and kinder. The staircase did not rush her. It waited for each step, patient and steady. Her breathing deepened further. Inhale, slow and full. Exhale, long and releasing. With every exhale, her body sank into greater ease. Muscles softened, jaw unclenched, forehead smoothed. The rhythm of movement and breath became almost automatic, freeing her from conscious control. She noticed now that the staircase seemed endless, yet she felt no concern about reaching a destination. The journey itself was enough. Each step was complete on its own, requiring nothing beyond itself. This realization brought a profound sense of surrender. She did not need to know what came next. The light around her grew slightly dimmer, though never dark. It was the gentle dimming that signals rest, like lamps being turned down in the evening. Aurora welcomed it, allowing her awareness to drift inward even more. Her steps became slower, not from effort, but from comfort. The staircase continued to support her fully, lifting her with every movement. Below, far out of sight. Anything that once felt heavy had been left behind. The spiral narrowed slightly, encouraging a more inward focus. Aurora's attention followed, settling deep within her chest, where her breath moved steadily. Each inhale felt nourishing, each exhale felt cleansing. The world reduced itself to this simple, repeating experience. Step, breath, light. She felt as though she were descending into a deeper layer of calm, even as her body continued its gentle ascent. The paradox did not trouble her. It felt natural, like drifting downward into sleep while the body remains perfectly at ease. The glow of the steps softened again, their light diffusing into the surrounding air. The stars above blurred slightly, becoming a gentle pattern rather than distinct points. Aurora's thoughts slowed to a near stop, replaced by a quiet, wordless awareness. She took another step, then another, each one carrying her further into tranquility. There was no strain, no effort, only the steady, comforting repetition, guiding her mind downward into rest. Her breathing became so slow, it was almost imperceptible. Inhale, pause. Exhale, pause. Time stretched, then thinned, losing its usual shape. Moments blended together, indistinguishable and serene, as she continued upward. Aurora felt completely safe, completely supported. The staircase of starlight held her gently, step by step, while her awareness sank deeper and deeper into calm. The day's mental clutter had fully dissolved, leaving behind a clear, quiet space where rest could unfold naturally. She did not need to reach the top. The movement itself was enough. With each slow step, her body remained light. Her mind descended further into peace, and the soft glow of the staircase carried her onward, cradled in stillness, drifting ever closer to sleep. The Garden of Reflections. Aurora sensed the change in space before she fully saw it. The air shifted, becoming softer, scented faintly with night-blooming flowers and cool earth. The spiral staircase eased to a natural end, its final step blending seamlessly into a wide, open garden bathed in moonlight. She stepped forward without effort, and the stone beneath her feet gave way to smooth paths edged with moss and silver-leafed plants that seemed to glow from within. The garden stretched gently in all directions, enclosed not by walls but by the quiet presence of tall, dark trees whose branches arched protectively overhead. Their leaves moved in slow, unhurried motions, swaying just enough to stir the air. Each movement released a soft whisper, a sound like breath passing through silk. Beneath it all ran a deeper tone, a subtle hum that seemed to rise from the flowers themselves. Aurora paused, allowing the garden to receive her. Clusters of blossoms dotted the landscape, pale blues, muted whites, soft violets, petals slightly translucent under the moon. They did not glow brightly, but steadily, their light calm and reassuring. As she listened, she realized the hum was rhythmic, gentle, and layered. Like many quiet voices harmonizing without words, she began to walk along the winding path, her steps slow and soundless. With every movement, The tension she did not realize she still carried loosened further. Her shoulders softened, her spine settled into an easy alignment, and her breathing deepened naturally, guided by the steady rhythm of the garden. Ahead, she noticed pools of water scattered throughout the space, their surfaces perfectly still. Each pool reflected the night sky with startling clarity. Stars mirrored so precisely it was hard to tell where sky ended and water began. The reflections shimmered faintly as clouds passed overhead, creating slow, fluid changes of light. Aurora approached the nearest pool and knelt beside it. The stone edge was cool beneath her fingers, grounding and steady. She gazed into the water, watching the stars drift across its surface, their movement unhurried, continuous. The hum of the flowers blended with a new sound, now the soft, rhythmic lapping of water against stone, barely audible yet deeply soothing. For a long moment, she simply watched. There was no impulse to act, no sense that she needed to do anything at all. The garden seemed content with her presence alone, and that acceptance settled gently within her chest. Eventually, she lowered one hand toward the pool. Her fingers hovered just above the surface, close enough to feel the coolness rising from the water. She took a slow breath in, then another, and finally allowed her fingertips, ripples spreading outward in smooth. The stars in the reflection wavered, stretching and bending, then reassembling themselves into new patterns. Aurora watched, fascinated yet calm, as shapes formed within the moving light, within the ripples. Images began to appear, not sharp or literal, but impressionistic and fluid. Ideas she had once held, half-formed thoughts and quiet dreams drifted into view. There were fragments of designs, suggestions of stories, colors without names, spaces that felt welcoming and open. None of them demanded attention. None asked to be judged or finished. She moved her hand slowly through the water, and the images shifted again. As her fingers traced a gentle arc, the ripples followed, carrying the visions with them. Some faded, others emerged, all of them free to come and go without consequence. Aurora felt something release inside her, a subtle unclenching she had not noticed before. She realized how often she had weighed her ideas down with expectation, how frequently she had measured them before allowing them to exist. Here, in the moonlit garden, the ideas floated easily, unburdened and light. The flowers around her swayed softly, their movement slow and rhythmic. As they moved, the hum deepened slightly, as if responding to the water's motion. The combined sound, water lapping, flowers humming, leaves whispering, created a layered calm that wrapped around her awareness. She let her hand rest in the pool, fingers relaxed, palm open. The water was cool, but not cold, soothing rather than startling. With each breath she took, the ripples slowed, then spread again, matching her rhythm. Inhale, the water gently responding. Exhale, the surface smoothing. Aurora watched another vision, formed this one, simpler than the others. It was not an image of a finished creation, but of a moment, herself sitting quietly, focused, present, no outcome attached, just attention, steady and kind. The sight filled her with a warmth that spread slowly through her chest and shoulders. She understood then, not as a thought, but as a feeling, that creativity did not ask for perfection. It did not require constant effort or judgment. It only needed space and presence, a willingness to be with what arose without trying to force it into shape. The realization settled gently, like a soft blanket being drawn up around her. She felt no urge to hold onto it tightly. It was enough to let it rest within her, knowing it would remain. She lifted her hand from the water. Droplets clung briefly to her skin, catching the moonlight before slipping back into the pool. The surface gradually stilled, the stars returning to their clear, undisturbed reflection. The visions faded without regret, leaving behind a calm, open clarity. Aurora sat back on her heels and closed her eyes for a moment. Behind her eyelids, the garden continued to exist. Soft light, slow movement, gentle sound. She breathed in deeply, filling her lungs with cool, fragrant air, then let it out slowly, releasing any remaining tension. When she opened her eyes again, the garden seemed even more serene. The pools lay quiet and reflective. The flowers continued their subtle sway, and the hum remained steady and comforting. Nothing demanded her attention, yet everything felt alive and responsive. She stood and began to walk again, this time without a destination. The path curved naturally beneath her feet, guiding her through the garden in wide, looping turns. With each step, her body felt heavier in the most pleasant way, grounded and relaxed, as if gravity itself had softened. The sounds of the garden followed her gently. Water lapped in slow, repetitive patterns. Leaves brushed against one another, then rested. The flowers' hum rose and fell, never abrupt, always smooth. Her breathing synchronized with it all, deep and unhurried. Aurora's thoughts grew quieter, fewer. When one did arise, it drifted through her awareness without catching, dissolving almost as soon as it appeared. The space between thoughts widened, filled with a calm presence that required no effort to maintain. She found herself beside another pool and paused, gazing into its mirror-like surface. This time, she did not reach out. She simply looked content to observe without interaction. The reflection showed the moon, whole and luminous, surrounded by stars. It was complete just as it was. That completeness resonated within her. She felt complete, too not finished, not perfected, but whole in the moment. The pressure she had once placed on herself felt distant, irrelevant here. Aurora sat once more, allowing her body to rest fully. Her muscles softened further, her limbs heavy and comfortable. The garden seemed to cradle her, holding her awareness gently, encouraging nothing more than continued ease. The moonlight shifted slightly as a cloud passed, dimming the light and then restoring it. Aurora followed the change with her breath, inhaling as the light softened, exhaling as it returned. The repetition lulled her deeper into calm. The garden did not change quickly. Everything moved at a pace that felt designed for rest. Flowers swayed, water whispered, leaves breathed. Time stretched, then blurred, losing its edges. Aurora felt sleep approaching, not as a sudden pull, but as a gradual deepening of relaxation. Her thoughts thinned until they were little more than impressions. Her body felt warm, supported, and safe. She allowed herself to remain there, surrounded by moonlight and gentle sound, knowing there was nothing she needed to do, nothing she needed to become. Presence was enough. Creativity, like the garden, would continue to grow quietly, without pressure, waiting patiently whenever she returned, as her breathing slowed further and her awareness softened. The garden held steady around her water, lapping softly, flowers humming low, leaves swaying in unison effortlessly into a peaceful, unguarded rest. The Moonlit Architect. Aurora became aware of another presence, not through sight, but through a subtle shift in the stillness. The garden remained as calm as before, flowers humming softly, water resting in quiet pools, but the air seemed to grow more attentive, as though it were listening. She lifted her gaze and noticed a figure standing a short distance away, where moonlight gathered most fully. The figure did not approach. It did not need to. It stood comfortably within the light, neither fully solid nor insubstantial, as if shaped from moonbeams and shadow woven together. Its outline was gentle, human in form, yet softened, edges blurring slightly into the night. Aurora felt no surprise, no fear, only a deep, steady sense of recognition, as though she had always known this meeting would happen. The Moonlit Architect did not speak at first. Instead, it raised one hand, slowly, palm open, in a gesture that felt both welcoming and patient. The motion was unhurried, perfectly matched to the calm rhythm of the garden. Aurora felt her breathing slow even further, each inhale smooth and deep, each exhale long and releasing. When the architect finally spoke, the voice arrived like a whisper carried on warm air. It did not come from a single direction, but seemed to surround her, gently, resonating inside her chest rather than her ears. The sound was soft, rhythmic, unforced, and every word felt like an invitation rather than an instruction. Aurora listened without needing to understand each word clearly. The tone itself was enough. It guided her awareness downward, inward, into a place of deep ease. As the voice continued, the garden seemed to respond. The flowers hummed, settling into a quieter harmony, the water's movement slowing to an almost imperceptible lap against stone. The architect gestured again, this time toward Aurora herself. She felt no pressure to move, yet her body responded naturally. She stood slowly, joints loose, movements fluid. The ground beneath her feet felt steady and supportive, as if it were holding her exactly where she needed to be. As she stood, something shifted within her awareness. Images began to surface, not sharp or demanding, but gentle and curious. Ideas she had carried for a long time, some forgotten, some only half-formed, floated quietly at the edge of her mind. She noticed them without grasping, plowing them to remain light. The architect's whisper continued, steady and soothing, encouraging her to simply notice. Aurora felt a warmth spread through her chest, then outward through her shoulders and arms. Her hands tingled softly, not with energy that demanded action, but with readiness, like the calm before a slow, deliberate movement. One of the ideas drifted closer, and as it did, something extraordinary happened. A faint sketch began to rise into the air in front of her. It was translucent, drawn in lines of soft silver light, hovering gently as if supported by the night itself. Aurora watched, calm and curious, as another sketch followed. Then another dot. They emerged effortlessly, as though her mind were opening windows and allowing them to float out on a gentle breeze. There was no strain, no sense of effort. The sketches simply appeared, each one unfolding slowly, patiently, giving her time to see it fully. The architect's presence remained steady beside her, the whispered guidance continuing in a slow, even rhythm. The words were reassuring, affirming the naturalness of what was happening. Aurora felt no need to hurry the process. Each sketch rose when it was ready, drifting upward and outward, finding its own place in the space above the garden. As the sketches hovered, they began to change. Lines thickened slightly, curves deepened, and delicate structures started to take shape. Stairways formed without weight, arches stretched gracefully into open air. Platforms balanced on nothing but moonlight and intention. These structures did not obey the usual rules of gravity, yet they felt stable, complete. Aurora felt a quiet sense of wonder spread through her, warm and steady. It was not the sharp excitement she had known before when creating under pressure. This was different. This was pride without urgency, amazement without tension. She felt deeply connected to what she was witnessing, yet not responsible for controlling it. The architect lifted both hands now, palms open, mirroring Aurora's relaxed posture. The whispered voice softened further, guiding her attention inward even as the structures continued to form. The message carried through tone rather than content. This was safe. This was natural. This was enough. Aurora noticed how each structure seemed to breathe. Light pulsed gently through them, brightening and dimming in a slow rhythm that matched her own breath. Inhale, the light subtly expanding. Exhale, it's settling again. The synchronization felt comforting, as though her body and imagination were moving together in a shared, effortless flow. She became aware that the garden had expanded. The pools reflected not only the sky now, but the floating structures as well, their mirrored forms shimmering softly in the water below. Flowers leaned subtly toward the light, their hum deepening into a richer, fuller tone that wrapped around the space like a quiet embrace. Aurora's shoulders relaxed completely. Any remaining sense of self-judgment dissolved, leaving behind a gentle acceptance. She realized that nothing she was creating here needed to be evaluated or perfected. The structures were not tests. They were expressions, allowed to exist simply because they could. The architect's whisper shifted slightly, the rhythm slowing further, each phrase spaced by comfortable pauses. Those pauses felt important. They allowed silence to do its work, to deepen the calm rather than interrupt it. Aurora found herself sinking into that silence, resting within it. It formed a small, open space, light and minimal, suspended quietly among the others. Aurora felt a special fondness for it, though she did not try to explain why. It felt honest, unadorned, complete in its simplicity. She sensed the architect's attention resting on her, not as scrutiny, but as quiet acknowledgement. The feeling filled her with a gentle confidence. She was not being measured or judged. She was being witnessed. The whispered guidance continued, reinforcing what her body already knew. There was no rush, no need to hold on. Creativity flowed naturally when space was given. The words settled into her awareness like soft echoes, reinforcing the deep relaxation spreading through her limbs. Aurora felt pleasantly heavy now, her body grounded even as her creations floated freely. The contrast felt soothing rather than strange. Her feet were warm against the earth, her legs relaxed, her spine comfortably aligned. At the same time, her mind felt open and spacious, unburdened by effort. The floating structures drifted slowly, rearranging themselves without instruction. They aligned, separated, layered gently, as if exploring their own possibilities. Aurora watched with quiet fascination, content to observe rather than intervene. The architect raised one hand again, and the whisper softened into a near murmur. The cadence became almost lullaby-like, guiding Aurora's awareness lower and lower. She noticed her breathing deepen further, each exhale releasing her more fully into rest. The light around them dimmed slightly, not fading, but settling into a softer glow. The stars above blurred into gentle patterns, their sharpness easing. Aurora's eyelids grew heavy, though she kept them open, enjoying the view without effort. She felt a sense of spaciousness inside her chest, as though a long-held tightness had finally dissolved. Pride remained, but it was quiet and warm, free of urgency. Wonder remained, but it was gentle, not overwhelming. The architect's presence felt closer now, though it had not moved. The whisper carried reassurance, repeating calmly, rhythmically, reinforcing the safety of this creative space. Aurora did not need to remember the words. Their effect was enough. One by one, the floating structures began to slow their movement, settling into a peaceful stillness. They remained suspended, luminous and calm, as if content to simply exist. Aurora felt no need to add anything more. Her thoughts thinned until they were little more than impressions, drifting through a wide, quiet awareness. The garden's sounds softened, further water barely whispering, flowers humming low, leaves resting between gentle sways. The architect lowered its hands, the whisper easing into silence without abruptness. The quiet that followed felt full and kind. Aurora stood within it, breathing slowly, deeply, her body completely at ease. She felt deeply safe, deeply supported, held within a limitless creative space that asked nothing of her. The knowledge settled gently. Imagination was not something she had to force or protect. It was something that flowed naturally when she allowed herself to rest within it. As her breathing slowed to a steady, soothing rhythm, Aurora allowed her awareness to drift. The floating structures remained above her, glowing softly. The garden held steady around her. The moonlit architect remained present, quiet and watchful. As her mind descended further into calm, there was nothing more to do, nothing more to create. The flow continued on its own, peaceful and unhurried, wrapped in moonlight, whispered reassurance, and deep relaxation. Aurora let go completely, resting within the gentle certainty that creativity, like sleep, arrives naturally when space is made for it. Drift into dream. Aurora felt the moment when even the quiet guidance of the moonlit architect receded, not disappearing, but settling into the background like a kindly presence, stepping back to allow rest. The garden softened further, its edges blurring into a gentle glow, and she found herself drawn toward a silver tree standing slightly apart from the others. Its trunk shimmered faintly, as if woven from moonlight and pale shadow. and its branches arched wide and protective, leaves catching the light like small, drifting stars. She moved toward it slowly, her steps unmeasured and easy. The ground beneath her felt warm now, softly yielding, as though it welcomed her weight. The hum of the flowers faded into an even quieter tone, and the water sounds grew more distant, blending into a low, continuous hush that reminded her of waves heard from far away. Everything seemed to be preparing, along with her, for rest. Beneath the silver tree, the light was gentler still. Moonlight filtered through the leaves in slow, shifting patterns, drifting across the ground like a lullaby made visible. Aurora lowered herself to the earth without effort, first sitting, then easing onto her back. The ground supported her completely, cool and comforting against her shoulders and spine. She rested her hands loosely at her sides, palms open, fingers relaxed. Above her, the branches swayed almost imperceptibly, each movement sending a faint shimmer through the leaves. The air felt calm and cradling, wrapping around her body with quiet care. Aurora's breathing slowed naturally. Inhale soft and deep, exhale long and releasing. There was nothing she needed to control. Her breath found its own rhythm, gentle and steady, like a tide that knew exactly when to come in and when to drift back out. As she lay there, she became aware of the structures she had created earlier, still hovering faintly in the distance. Their outlines were softer now, less defined. Light pulsed through them slowly, dimming with each passing moment. Aurora felt no sadness watching them change. There was only a sense of completion, as though their purpose had already been fulfilled simply by existing. The silver tree seemed to respond to her stillness. Its glow deepened slightly, casting a calm, protective light around her. Leaves whispered quietly, brushing against one another in a slow, repetitive motion. The sound was rhythmic and reassuring, encouraging her awareness to drift downward, away from thought and into sensation. Aurora noticed how heavy her body felt now, in the most comforting way. Her legs rested fully against the ground, muscles loose and relaxed. Her arms felt warm and pleasantly weighted. Even her face softened, jaw unclenched, brow smooth, eyelids growing heavy dot above her. The sky stretched wide and endless. Stars shimmered softly, no longer sharp points, but gentle lights, suspended in a deep, velvety dark. The moon hovered serenely, its glow spilling down in slow waves that seemed to move in time with her breath. Inhale, the moonlight brightened slightly. Exhale, it softened again. Her thoughts grew quieter, slowing as if they, too, were becoming heavy. When one did appear, it drifted lazily across her awareness and dissolved before it could take shape. There was no effort involved in letting go. The letting go happened on its own. The floating structures continued to fade, their edges dissolving into fine threads of light. Those threads lifted gently, breaking apart into countless points of starlight that drifted upward and outward. Aurora watched without focusing, her gaze soft, her attention diffused. As the structures dissolved, she felt something inside her release completely. Any lingering sense of responsibility, of needing to remember or hold on to what had been created, slipped away. Creativity did not need guarding. It could rest now, just as she was resting. The stars seemed closer, as though the sky itself were leaning down toward her. Aurora imagined herself floating among them, weightless and unburdened. The thought was not vivid or insistent. It was a gentle suggestion, easily accepted. Her breathing grew even slower. Inhale, calm, filling her chest. Exhale, calm, spreading outward. Then settling, the silver tree's leaves glowed softly above her, their light drifting down in slow, spiraling patterns. Each spiral felt like an invitation to drift deeper, to sink into the comfort beneath her, to allow awareness to soften further. Sounds continued to fade. The flowers' hum became barely audible. The water's whisper thinned into silence. Even the leaves' movement quieted, pausing between gentle sways. What remained was a deep, enveloping stillness, warm and safe. Aurora's eyelids closed fully now. Behind them, light and shadow moved slowly, forming abstract patterns that required no attention. She did not follow them. She simply allowed them to pass. Her body felt completely supported. The ground held her without pressure. The air rested against her skin like a soft blanket. There was no edge between her and the night, no clear boundary. Everything blended into a single, peaceful experience. In Helix Hell time, lost its meaning. Moments stretched and softened, merging into one another. Aurora no longer tracked where she was or what had come before. There was only this gentle floating, this deepening rest above her. The last traces of the structures vanished entirely, becoming indistinguishable from the stars. Nothing was lost. Everything had simply returned to light. The silver tree remained, steady and luminous, its presence calm and reassuring. Aurora felt as though she were being watched over, not with attention that demanded anything, but with a quiet, benevolent awareness. Her thoughts thinned to almost nothing. Sensations softened. Even the sense of her own body began to blur at the edges, becoming lighter, less defined, as if she were gently drifting upward, even while lying still. Inhale slow and easy. Exhale long and deep with each breath. She sank further into rest. The day, the journey, the images, all receded naturally, like dreams fading at the edge of sleep. There was no need to hold on to them. They would return if and when they were needed. Aurora felt herself floating now, not physically, but in awareness, floating among stars, among soft light and endless calm. The silver tree's glow wrapped around her like a lullaby, steady and soothing. Her breathing became so gentle, it was barely noticeable. Her mind rested in a quiet space beyond words. Nothing needed naming. Nothing needed shaping. Sleep approached without announcement, without urgency. It arrived the way moonlight arrives gradually, kindly, filling the space until it was complete. Aurora drifted, suspended in comfort and ease. Thoughts dissolved. Sensations softened. Awareness narrowed to a single, peaceful point, then widened into nothing at all. Beneath the silver tree, wrapped in moonlight and silence, she let go completely, floating effortlessly into sleep, where dreams waited softly, like stars, ready to glow when night was deep enough. Thank you for listening. May your sleep be deep and peaceful. Let the night hold you gently. Allow your thoughts to drift and soften. There is nothing more to do, nothing more to hear. Rest now. Good night.